Master the business of speaking with your hosts, Taylor and Austin. You're listening to Technically Speaking.
Welcome to another episode of Technically Speaking. We are really excited about today's guest, Managing Partner and Chief Marketing Officer at eSpeakers, Joe Heaps. Joe, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, definitely.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
This is like talking with the guys, right? I mean, we've known each other for so long. It's not really a serious conversation. It's like we're industry. We're in the same industry and do a lot of the same stuff or talk to the same people. So we've rubbed elbows as long as you guys have been in the industry, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. It's been a while. Yeah. 18 months, I think.
Yeah. Has that been 18 months?
18 months. Yeah. Well, now when the time of this is recorded, we'll probably be at like 22, almost 2 years.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. Crazy, huh?
It was like yesterday.
Yeah. And a lifetime at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You were there for our inception, really. I mean, when
yeah.
we first showed up to Influence, we had just started the company.
I was just
we were partnered with booths right next to each other.
Walked in with your banners and stuff, and yeah, it was good. It was good. But yeah, we bonded as well as you can bond, and we've had a good relationship. I think we have some good ideas, and for those that are listening to this, hopefully we've announced a really cool opportunity between the two of us with eSpeakers and SpeakerFlow that you'll already know about. So yeah, I'm letting the cat out of the bag, and it'll already be let out.
Tease that a little bit. That's right. Well, for those of you listening who aren't familiar with Joe, Joe is a managing partner and the CMO at eSpeakers. In his many years in the industry, Joe's innovative ideas and strategic vision has moved eSpeakers forward, recognized as the leading software provider in the industry. Joe and his team have to lead the charge in the industry adoption of technologies such as online bookings, shared calendars, event reporting, online listing management, and various other industry utilities. As one of the partners of eSpeakers, along with Dave Reed and the late professional speaker Art Berg, CSP, CPAE, Joe continues to focus on how technology can bring real business value to professional speakers, speakers bureaus, and event organizers. Man, Joe, what a cool background. I'm curious, man, how did you even get into the world of eSpeakers? What led you down the crazy path of getting in the professional speaking industry?
Well, I mean, it wasn't so much getting into this industry. It was more of my industry experience in technology. Right before working with or coming to eSpeakers, I had experience as a product marketing manager at a company that's now acquired by Symantec. But I would market the product, but where I really learned a lot is in order to make $10 million, I had to spend $1 million. Mm-hmm. And that's always a good problem to spend money, right? But I learned a lot about the value of good marketing and getting out and getting exposure. And, it was paid for, but that's how we made our money. And so I got a really good base of marketing technology from that experience. And I was, anyway, but basically Arberg, who founded the company, was a friend of ours, my wife and I, and when he ended up passing, we were talking to his wife and said, what are you cleaning things up from his passing, and can we help you do anything? And she's like, well, I just have this company he started and I don't know what to do with it. And so I just said, well, that's my wheelhouse. Let me jump in and help you. And I ended up helping, and then just came on, and that was like 19 years later, or 20 years later. So anyway, it's been a good ride, and that's kind of how I got involved in the industry. And I was working with Dave in the beginning, who's my business partner now. And so, yeah, we started kind of with our technology. It was before its time, particularly with our calendar management tool. It was working with a connection through the internet, which we all know now as the cloud. And it was cloud-based technology without the cloud being there, and people knowing it was called that. And so it allowed basically bureaus at the time to have a backdoor into a speaker's calendar and be able to look and say, hey, they're either booked or they have a hold that day. And that was one of the real problems of the industry was you had to call somebody. And if the speaker didn't have staff, you're calling the speaker. And if the speaker's not at his office, or if he's on a plane, he's not answering his cell phone. And it was just a real trouble to try to get coordination of that. And so we just kind of fast tracked it and automated it and made it easier for people to connect with speakers. And as that process went, we just uncovered all of these needs that speakers had, and we just kept fulfilling those needs and trying to provide ways that would make it easier and make it not only just easier for the speakers, but for the event organizers who are booking them. And so over all these years, that's kind of how we've grown and become the business that we are, as we've really listened to our customers, and they say, hey, it would really help to do this, this, and this. And so we say, okay, well, let's look at that, research it, and come out with the best solution. So that's really, our system is really built by our customers. If you peeled back every little feature of our technology, you'd have somebody's name by it that suggested it originally, So that's something that we pride ourselves in. We listen to our customers, and it's been really good that way. And of course, we're not perfect, and there's things that don't work great. And so, but we're always trying to improve it and make it better. And our big problem is that our biggest competition is the big software companies, that provide the big tools and have thousands of people working for them. So this is a really niche industry, and that's been kind of how we've been able to survive, is the fact that we've been able to provide unique tools that are unique to this industry, and rather than trying to solve a problem for everybody out there, we just focused on this industry, and it's proved to be successful for us. So
yeah, it's super cool too. I mean, you guys have made a reputation for yourselves as like the place to go if you're a speaker and you need help managing your calendar. And I think that branding has certainly paid off for one thing.
Yeah, it has. I mean, one of the things that we're still working on, and it's a frustration. It's just so, if there's something that you go to bed thinking, I didn't get this done today, or you wake up and it's the first thing you think, I got to get this done. It's always this. And that is that we saw a need to put the event organizers, the planners, in direct contact with the speakers. That's one of the things the speaker said is like, we understand and respect the whole bureau role of everything, but with technology, we're having a hard time connecting. And is there something you could do? And that's where we rolled out our profiles. One speaker in particular had said, hey, there's like 5 different versions of me on these 5 different websites. And wouldn't it be a great idea to have one profile that updated them all? And so that's what we do with our technology is update all of them with one tool. But in conjunction with that, we realized that there's a little bit of a gap. Actually, it's not little, it's big. It's a big gap between buying a speaker directly from an event organizer and doing that through the web. And so we put this technology together called eSpeakers Marketplace, which has a sales engine which allows a buyer, a meeting planner, to go and go to the website and kind of search through basically their price range and their topics and different things like that, and the criteria of the event, and narrow it down and kind of add people to their shopping cart, or what we call a short list, and then share that short list with their coworkers with that particular event. And then they can narrow it down to one, sign a contract with them, and pay them all online. And so all of that is done in one online process. And we started that about 6 years ago, a little bit before its time. But the problem that we've had is just getting through all the noise of the internet. And I mean, we do a ton of SEO, we word of mouth. We're at a lot of the event professional web conventions. We're partners with a lot of the big groups. But one of the problems we've had is still just getting that traffic to those profiles and changing the mentality that you don't have to, I don't know, I don't even know a good example here, but you don't have to, call a speaker or, email them or contact them directly, that there's another resource that's kind of a better and more efficient way to search. And over the years, it's actually is taken off. And actually last year we had our very best year with the most jobs. We grew by like 400% from the year before. And we did some research in that and found that it's because the buyers, these meeting professionals, event organizers, their roles are changing. And so it could be more executives that are doing it. And a lot of the new up and coming event organizers are millennials, and they don't buy anything. Well, you guys are millennials. You don't buy anything without checking it out on the web first, and you probably do it on your phone first, right? Yeah. And so anyway, that's the environment that we're working with, and so it's taken off. And then what happened this year was with COVID and the pandemic, it just changed everything. We essentially in March, we had speakers that had nothing on their calendar, and they would have like 25 to 40 bookings for 2020. And then I just lost everything. So we had one side of the table, we had these, all the speakers with nothing on the calendar. And then on the other side, we had event organizers who had jobs in our system, and they now had to put their event on hold or postpone it or cancel it. And there was just like this gap in between. And so we thought, there's something that we can do. And that was to come out with a certification called the Certified Virtual Presenter. And what the certification does is that we just spend 30 minutes with the speaker, verifying their audio, video, their internet connection, their background, if it's not distracting. And where this kind of came from is we were trying to help in the beginning in March, we were trying to help a few of the event organizers saying, yeah, we have some people that can present to you virtually. And we gave them some of the names, and they called them and set up a Zoom appointment, or not called them, they emailed them and set up a Zoom appointment. And, one of the speakers that was doing a pre-call with the event organizer for their executive team of like 10 people. And, the wife was doing the dishes in the background and the guy's video. And there was another person that didn't have good internet connection. And, somebody that the video was grainy. And, it was just like, we had this combination of all these different issues. And we thought, what, we can do something about this. So we created that certification, which certifies their environment. It's not their presentation skills. It's not their content. It's just their environment. And it's taken off. We've certified over 1,000 speakers worldwide in that time. The first 2 months, maybe 2.5 months, there were 5 of us working every hour of the day. Like I would certify 10, 11 people a day. And if that's, you can imagine that's 30 minutes a piece. I didn't have lunch. I didn't, we were just going game crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And so people wanted some type of validation, the speakers did, saying, hey, I can present from my home. I normally present from the stage, but I've got a good home environment, I can help you, and they adapted and pivoted super quick, like just almost immediately. Our biggest push was through those first 60 days. The event organizers, on the other hand, struggled to kind of figure out what direction they wanted to go. They either had to cancel their event, postpone it, or figure out something else. And that was where we came in, and we suggested to several of them, hey, why don't you just do a virtual event? And one of them was a big telecom company over in the Philippines that had a convention normally planned. We talked them into doing a virtual event. And so instead of 1,000 people being at their convention, which they normally had, they had 8,000 people on a Zoom call. 8,000 people. And these were all people from all over Asia or wherever they were in the world joining this call. And the event organizer was kind of skeptical at the beginning, like, I don't know if this is going to work or if it's worth it, but we don't have an option right now. And by the end of it, when it was over, they absolutely raved about it because it was such a great experience for everybody. They got the same content. The speaker was amazing. It was Simon Sinek, by the way, and he's amazing and knocked it out of the park. But the 8,000 people, they were getting comments from people that they'd never even heard from before in the company. They didn't even know them. And they were, the people, the employees were feeling like they were engaged in it and everything. So it was just an awesome experience. And it was their first, and they've come back to us 3 times this year.
Wow.
For big events. And they pay for big speakers. And so for them to sign off on that, and I just found out today, there's another one now that they've booked in Q1. But the point is that it just took a little bit of encouragement, and they found out that was okay. And there's some good things that happen with virtual. Sure, there's not some of the networking that you have in person when you do it in person. But I truly believe that because of what's happened this year, we won't see another event in the future that won't have some hybrid element as part of it. There'll always be some virtual part of it, and some in-person part of it, or just virtual, honestly. But it's going to be, I truly believe that there's going to be a speaker that's virtual, or the audience will be virtual. And I think that's going to be the most common thing, is that no event's going to happen without
virtual component,
having a virtual sign-in, because people are just not going to travel like they used to. Yeah. So anyway, we came out with that. And then just last week, we've been working on another certification called the Certified Virtual Host. And we just launched that last week. And that essentially is, it's a training course, and it basically is 8 hours of live course training on Zoom. So if you want to be better at Zoom, and you want to, for instance, you're learning what type of learners you have, you're moderating breakout rooms, you're starting conversations with questions, you talk about a little bit of the background, the lighting and things like that, but you have to have your certified virtual presenter certification to even take this other one, because we don't want to spend time on, is your office setting okay to present from? So really it just focuses on the host, how you do icebreakers, how you collaborate together, how you engage the audience virtually, because most of these speakers have been presenting from the stage. And when you speak to somebody in person, it's a lot easier to see the audience reaction. You can call out people, you can use them as a discussion. It's just a different experience as it is when you do it virtually. And so, there's some things that you have to learn doing that, learning how to share videos and whiteboards and desktops and slides, and troubleshooting things. And, there's a whole bunch involved with that, but it's a really awesome 8 hours spent. And we've got a really great professional that is an expert in this that we brought on to do this. His name's Kalen Huntress, and he's super, super awesome. And
Kalen's a great guy.
Yeah. And anyway, what's that?
I said, we'll have him on the show here soon.
Oh yeah.
Kalen's awesome. So it sounds like the virtual host, Joe, is mainly it's like the stagecraft component, so to speak, of the virtual world. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. It's the virtual stagecraft. It doesn't really have anything to do with your content. Again, we're not, and we're really not talking about your presentation skills as in how good you can present, because Taylor, I've watched you on video before, like you're really well, like you put together and you speak well and everything like that. It's not really that. It's really about hosting the environment with other people in the room, and not kicking Austin out of the room and things like that. Right, Austin?
For sure.
And being confident in the delivery of those things, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a few meetings I've sat in on where it's like there's a person who's like used breakout sessions for like the first time ever, and they're like, well, let's hope this works. And then, you know, that moment before they go into breakout where they're frozen, they think it broke, they're like, oh no, like something went wrong. It's like you don't want to be in that seat when you're running an event for somebody. You want to know the way you're executing on it is the right way. It's going to work every time. And then that gives, you know, the person that hired you in the first place more confidence in your delivery past that point.
And we really came up with this because of those 1,000 people we certified. Is there's some speakers that, my word, they have amazing studios.
Setups.
They are awesome. I mean, they ought to rent those things out. They're so good. And so it's been really interesting to see those. But yet you still have people that are just kind of doing it from the kitchen table. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to kind of create a standard, and that's what we've tried to do. And so, but the virtual host certification is really an extension of that. It's just saying, hey, you can host the meeting, and you know, and anyway, so we're seeing really great uptake in it so far, and we're almost full in our classes for December, so that's really good. So.
It's awesome to hear. It's information that people need. And I want to pause us just for a minute here, because we've spent a good deal of time here talking about some of these certifications and the coursework that you're releasing right now, which is awesome. But we covered a lot of other stuff too, from your background and sort of where eSpeakers came from. And I want to put a bit of a timeline together for people listening, because there's these specific segments of the eSpeakers business that I think people need to be familiar with. And I want to make sure that people can differentiate them properly, right? So 20 years ago, when eSpeakers started, originally it's a calendar management tool, right? This is where you're managing a speaker's inventory, meaning their time. And then 6 years ago, you released the eSpeakers Marketplace. And this is the directory listing where speakers can get listed, meeting planners can be connected with them, and so on. And then now in 2020, we're releasing the virtual certifications and the virtual host coursework and certification, right? So this is the timeline that we're working with, right? And I think that the virtual stuff is something that's super cool, but I do want to go into you a little bit with the distinction between the calendar management software and the marketplace, because for us, when we talk about eSpeakers, a lot of the time when people are talking about eSpeakers, it's referencing this marketplace, right? And them wanting to get booked. And we say it all the time. There's no doubt there's value in multiple ways for why you would want to be listed in the directory. But, and stop me if I'm wrong here, Joe, but really, like, when people are signing up with eSpeakers outside of the certifications in the marketplace, they're getting event CX, right? And I want people to understand this as the event calendar management side of things. So can you, for our listeners, sort of help people differentiate these two different sides of the business, meaning the marketplace visibility stuff versus the actual technology suite that you guys provide?
Yeah. So what we found, this is kind of that's a good question. What we found is that there's a lot of speakers that when we first, like, I don't even know how far back, but they were using paper calendars, right? And it was on the wall, or it was a whiteboard or whatever. And, you know,
I hear that occasionally still to this day.
I know, I kind of still fall back into it, but because it's system, it works, right? But it doesn't work when you have 80 events on the calendar and you're trying to track all the different data points behind that. And if you have staff or anybody helping you, it doesn't help you. And it doesn't help you if a bureau wants to look at your schedule, or some buyer that's looking at your schedule and it's on your wall and you can't share that. And so, you know, those are the things that really differentiate that. And really the driving factor behind the calendar is so that you let people know where you're at and where you're going to be. And so if Austin is speaking in Dallas, Texas, for example, then, you know, it'd be great for all the people he spoke to there before or wants to speak to, if they'd be notified that he's going to be there, and hey, take some time to preview him while he's there. So that's one aspect of the calendar. The other aspect is like searching on Marketplace. If I'm looking for a speaker on diversity, and Austin's an expert in diversity, and I see that he's available on December 10th, then, you know, that makes my job a lot easier, you know? So it really all stems from that calendar. And speakers tend to have, what they would have is a really nice storefront a profile or website, but on the back end, they had stacks of paper and, notes and a paper calendar, because nobody really saw that, and they can kind of do it the way they feel comfortable. It doesn't mean it was efficient. And so we had to kind of change the mentality that way. And so one of the things that we really tried to educate speakers in is like, you can make your office more automated and efficient and give you more time to work on the things that you want to work on, rather than, being stuck doing the automation of reminding yourself to do this and making to-do lists and things like that. And so the real big difference between those two is one helps sell you, which is marketplace, and the other one, it helps get you organized and helps manage you and your time. And that's really the biggest difference.
Yeah, definitely. So what we see all the time too, it's part of the reason why SpeakerFlow exists, is there's a lot to do when you're running any business, and professionally speaking is unique. You got to share where you're at and what you're doing, and you have to manage your time. And it can be difficult. Like if you don't have that, for example, one of my favorite things about Event CX is that year view of your calendar, where you know where your busiest times are and you know where your helds are, so you can kind of coordinate other gigs around those time frames, so you can increase your revenue and handle those little nuanced things that often we don't think about because we don't even know how to execute on it. Like I have a gig coming up in Dallas. Well, it'd be great if I could find all of my previous events where I spoke in that area to re-invite them and rekindle that. But to do that with a spreadsheet or a whiteboard or what, it's a monumental chore that'll take you 2 days just to get everything organized before you send out those emails to people. So, having your business systems can elevate you to a point where, one, you can have staff and everyone's on the same page, but two, allows you to focus on what you like doing best, which is more often than not the nitty-gritty business systems that propel your revenue forward. It's the creativity, the content creation, and all that.
Yeah, we find that people, because most speakers run their own business, they spend a lot of time working, too much time in the business. Right? Yeah, they just too much time, and they don't need to do that. They can automate it. And so one of the things that we've been hit up for years and years about, add a CRM functionality to your system and add financial bank, like QuickBooks is pretty awesome. Just stay with that. Online QuickBooks is amazing, and we integrate with it. And there's some great CRMs out there, not to mention SpeakerFlow, but okay, I'll mention
plug there.
Sorry for the plug. But yeah, there's some amazing integrations, and why reinvent that wheel? We're not trying to do that. And one thing that we see people do a lot is they'll use Outlook, for example. It comes free on a computer, and they use that as their calendar, it's a great calendar, it'll work, but they use that to manage their events, and that's not good. And so they're using kind of a square peg in a round hole, and it's not making them efficient. They have to do more work. So then they create a spreadsheet to track this and another spreadsheet to track this, and it just becomes more work. And that's where, using a tool like Event CX will help kind of centralize everything. All the events go into Event CX first, and then flow from that to your other calendars. We're not saying don't use Google Calendar or Outlook or Mac iCal. We're not saying that. We're just saying you start with the eSpeakers one, and then we can link all that data to there. In fact, one of the best pieces of advice that we were giving, I don't know, it could have been 10 years ago, and it's still relevant today, and that is to have a business calendar and a daily personal calendar, and keep those two in sync, so that if you're if you have a job and you look on the 10th of December and you see you have a dentist appointment, you can reschedule that. That's not a problem. Or your son's soccer game or whatever. But it's a lot harder if you've messed up an event. And so if the two sync together, you kind of have a lot bigger view and wider view of what the landscape looks like. And so that's really the with Event CX. It's one of the other things that it does that has really created a lot of traction for people is if you're familiar with the CSP, the Certified Speaking Professional designation, that our system tracks that automatically by just entering the dates in. And so you just click a button and it'll generate a report that you can send in to get your CSP, and it makes it a lot easier. So it's just a few things like that really automate the process and help speakers. And so
we know for a fact that last component too, the CSP application thing, is not only useful for you as the speaker, but for the board that's making, or the committee that's making the decisions with the NSA.
Yeah.
So we've got a few people in our coaching program that were past members of that committee or board. Yeah. And they said that every time somebody came with an eSpeakers prepared CSP application, it was easier for everybody.
Yeah.
It's about automating those little things, and also excited for that integration we have come in. So for those of you listening, that integration is probably just on its way. So if you're interested in how eSpeakers Event CX Pro can work with SpeakerFlow CRM, you know where to find us. Yeah. But Joe, as you know, we're all about creating value for our audience, right? That's why we brought you on. So what are some of the places that you can send people right now where they would get the most benefit from?
Well, I think in the current landscape of where we're at, there's a lot that you can talk about in regards to your content, your stage, your calendar. I mean, calendars are fairly bare right now. People are still trying to get traction with the pandemic and everything. So I think it's a relevant factor going forward, no matter what, even if the pandemic was over tomorrow, and that is working virtually.
That's right.
You've got to be virtually prepared. I would highly suggest our certified virtual presenter certification. It's a baseline for you. You can put it out on social media, on your websites, and share it with people that you have a home office that's prepared for that. The other one is the virtual host that we just launched. I do think that is going to have a bigger factor moving forward, because there are going to be events where they're going to need the speaker. And we see this often where the meeting planner doesn't know really how to run the meeting. So the speaker says, hey, I'll speak and let me host it. And I'll be the moderator, I'll speak, I'll host it, and they run it because they know how to do it. And I think the speakers are just used to it, and they're ahead of the game a little bit. And the event organizers are catching up, but they're still not quite in that mindset. So I would say those two things, if you could do nothing else, those are the two things that I would do. Well,
definitely.
I'll add a third thing. You got to have an online calendar.
Yeah.
You've got to have an online calendar. You can't rely upon people emailing you or calling you for that. You've got to have an online calendar. It's got to be available to the public, and nobody cares anymore. What's that? Got
to make it as easy as possible for the people hiring you, right?
Nobody cares anymore about a bare calendar. It's like, you've got it. In our case, it's an availability calendar. It's not how many times I'm presenting on the stage or virtually. Right. It's an availability. It says I'm available. So you could have a vacation in there. You could have a day that you're just not speaking in there. Those are dates that are booked. So nobody really cares if you have it's like buying shoes off of Nordstrom.com or whatever website.
I just want to make sure they can book you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I can get them. If I don't know how many's in stock, then why would I order it there? I'll go to another website,
That's exactly right.
Anyway, so those are the three things.
Got it. Well, you heard it right from the source, folks. I will make sure those links are in the show notes. And hey, if you like this episode, don't forget to hit subscribe, rate the show. And if you want more awesome resources like this, go to speakerflow.com/resources. Thank you so much for chiming in. I just wanted to take a second to thank our sponsor, Auxbus. Auxbus is the all-in-one suite of tools you need to run your podcast. And it's actually what we run here at SpeakerFlow for Technically Speaking. It makes planning podcasts simple. It makes recording podcasts simple. It even makes publishing podcasts to the masses simple. And quite honestly, Technically Speaking wouldn't be up as soon as it is without Auxbus. Thank you so much, Auxbus. And if you are interested in checking Auxbus out, whether you're starting a podcast or you have one currently, get our special offer, auxbus.com/speakerflow, or click the link below in our show notes.
Thanks for tuning in today. Check the show notes for more info and see you next time. Later.